Welcome to the Period Besties podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
Welcome to the Period Besties podcast. So today, Katie and I thought it would be kind of fun to pull back the curtain on what a period coaching session would be like with somebody. There's a lot of mystery and taboo and misinformation in the world of menstrual cycles and even coaching. So it thought it would be kind of a nice way to hopefully make you feel a little bit more at ease. And, maybe even kind of go, oh, yeah, no, I think that this would actually be helpful for me. Or, oh, yeah, no, I don't think I need that. So you can kind of make a more educated decision rather than just kind of letting that cloud of, I don't expect, fear and anxiety prevent you from making any moves. Welcoming you into the world behind the scenes of what a period coaching session is like. And since Katie and I do have different approaches and styles, I thought it would be kind of fun to both share so you can see some of those differences as well. So, Katie, why don't you share with us what a private coaching session looks like with you?
Yeah. So I think what is most important is taking time for yourself and knowing that it took a while to get to the point where you're not feeling your best. And it's going to take some time. It doesn't mean it's going to be hard. I think there's a big difference between time and something hard. A lot of times in society, if something takes a while, we just think it's hard. But just know that it's not like a one session, everything's great, we're going to move on type of conversation. So I think that's the most important thing to know is like, you're really dedicating time for your health. So if you are looking and you sign up, we both offer like discovery calls, and it's a great time and place to just tell us everything.
Yeah.
Like I ask about your digestion, your period, what color your period is, cramps. We talk a lot about diet, lifestyle, sleep, stress. And in this session, I ask a lot of questions, but I really encourage my potential clients to ask me a lot of questions too, because I want to really make sure that this is a good fit. They feel comfortable and that I want to lead, but I don't want to take the whole conversation in one direction. I really want to open it up and have like really good dialogue because I think that's important. That's also when I know if I can help you or not with whatever might be going on. And then hopefully you can kind of get a better idea of whether or not you would like me to guide you. So I think that's a great way that we open. And then if we decide to work together, I think it's a mutual decision. Then we would really take a closer look at your health history. We would dive deeper into your lifestyle. We would really build the foundations. It's like, I'm always telling my clients, we've got to go back to the basics. For whatever reason, those are the hardest. Drinking more water, eating more protein, going to bed on time. And in our busy world, our busy lifestyles, it's usually always I don't want to say every single time, but I would say a majority of the time, it's really getting that foundation of our health looked at and creating more of a foundation. I think a lot of us think we are doing all the things. And then when we take a closer look, like, oh goodness, I didn't realize I wasn't eating lunch, and diving a little bit closer. and then giving it time, 3 months is usually a good place to start. Like, I know that's something that you also do as well. And then, but it's not going to solve everything, right? 3 months is also a really short time. So that's kind of like how I like to deep dive and just ask lots of questions, and expect lots of questions each time you come to our sessions. And I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, I fully agree. It feels very comforting, right? In that way where you've got somebody who is listening to you. And oftentimes for the first time, because a lot of times we go to doctors with these kinds of like, I'm not feeling as zesty as I used to, or my libido is crashing, or my moods are swinging, or whatever it is. And, you get your 7 minutes in the doctor's office and then a prescription or a surgery, or just told you're fine. It's just the curse, enjoy and go on your way. So it is oftentimes the first time that you can really have a conversation with somebody and be heard and seen and believed. Yeah, I do like those initial discovery sessions as well, just to have a chat and see, what's going on. Is this something that I think me as a coach would be something I can help you with and support you through? And then if we do work together, I think of myself as, team you. So whereas, other people have a lot of other interests, I'm there for you. I'm not there for your husband or your kids or your dog or your mother-in-law. I'm there for you, just you. And if that means we need to figure out, how to do healthy dinners for the whole family, that's fine. If you're the one that makes the dinners. But at the end of the day, having a coach is supposed to be having one person who is 100% in your corner, cheerleading you on, supporting you, maybe helping with some accountability, right? It's like, we know we need to drink more water, but when you have to, when you're signing up for your coaching session and you're going to have to account for your water intake, you're much more, you're much more likely to drink more water. And if you're working with a coach, especially for a decent period of time, it becomes a real habit, so that when you do end your coaching relationship, you're still going to continue to, drink that water, for example. And yeah, same thing with me. I'm often reminding clients, you didn't get here overnight. You're not going to get out of here overnight. We are a very instant gratification society. But that's not how menstrual cycles work. You have to wait for your next period to get your report card to see how things are going and changing, improving, whatever's happening. So I usually tell clients, I need to work with you for, depending on what's going on with them, but let's just say 6 months for the sake of an example. That's only 6 periods. That's only 6 menstrual cycles. So I know we have this idea of time, oh my God, 6 months, that's forever, but it's really only 6 periods. And that's a very different way of looking at things. So a lot of times with clients, we'll say like, I think that if we work together for X amount of time, we could probably handle all this, but it might take a little bit longer. And a lot of times I have clients who come to me, with endometriosis, and they're running a business and they have all the stuff. And I will just point blank say, we need a year. That's 12 to 13 cycles. But it's a much more complicated issue. So we really need some time to work together to implement those habits, to make those changes in food and movement and lifestyle and all that stuff, and to make them stick. Yeah. So sometimes even the last few months is just going, okay, we found a really good way to work, but let's just make sure that we stick with it. So let's do a couple more months where we have the accountability and the check-ins, and make sure that that it's actually sticking. And a lot of times that's the make or break right there. So yeah, I definitely find very similarly that we need that support to build up those healthier habits and get out of that, like, I'm being selfish mindset because you're taking care of yourself. I mean, we'd meet 2 times a month for an hour, right? It's 2 hours a month. Like, really, are you really that low on your priority list that you can't spend 2 hours a month just focusing on yourself and your own health?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think too, something that we both hear often is, well, Google said this. And my doctor said that, but I've tried all these things and I'm still experiencing all of these symptoms. And then when we kind of pull back the layers, we're like, oh, okay, like, yes, Google might have said this is what you should do when you have these symptoms, but if it's not working for you, we've got to have a deeper conversation about like what is actually going on. But, I think a good coach helps you not feel overwhelmed. Like Google overwhelms me. Like I'll Google something and I'm like, okay. So a good coach, a good support system is somebody that takes the overwhelm out of that and just walks you through the steps to get to where you want to be rather than, we always tend to focus on like the big thing first.
Yeah.
Versus doing the small, simple daily shifts and habits that actually add up to the big lifestyle changes. So I think a really good coach will see and even hear. Like I feel like a lot of times, like my clients will be like, well, I didn't say that. I'm like, well, this is what I heard, like
Right.
in your voice, in your hesitation. So let's kind of pivot and shift so that you don't feel overwhelmed, because that's one thing that we both really believe in, is making this really simple and attainable so that you don't feel overwhelmed and not rely on Google.
Dr. Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, yeah, it's right. A good coach is somebody who's helping keep you on track and organized and moving forward in a doable way. Not, if you're coming back every time and saying, I just didn't do it, then that's obviously not working. Right. So it's like, okay, well then how do we pivot to make it something that works? So it really is, I do like coaching because it's always a new puzzle, right? How do we help this person with this particular, unique set of symptoms in their unique life and lifestyle in a way that works for them? And it's always different. It's always interesting. And I hope I'd like to think that my clients agree that they, got a lot out of it and that it works for them because, years later, I'm getting messages from people who are still doing well. So obviously it worked well, and it implemented into their lifestyle in a way that was doable and repeatable and a healthy habit. So I really like that aspect of it. Okay,
That's a
so
good point. I want to like just
yeah,
share like that point, because it's like we're not doing this for ourselves,
yeah,
right? Like that's a really good point. Like we want to make sure that this works for you and your lifestyle. So I just wanted to share, because that's a really solid thing for everybody that's listening to tune into. Like this is about you. Like here's suggestions, but is this going to work for you?
yeah. Yeah, that's super important. Thank you for pointing that out, because you're absolutely right. It is, I think, a difference between somebody who's an effective coach and maybe somebody who's not as an effective coach. I have clients that ask me about my stuff all the time, and I'm happy to share. But I'll say, yeah, but that worked for me because of this. Does this apply to you? So how do we make it work for you and tailor it in a way that works for you? I think that is and actually kind of a good, if you're looking to hire a coach, kind of keep an eye out for that, or, talking through that thing and being honest, I'm, having like, oh, well, I don't know if that's going to really work out that way, or, having those kinds of conversations as well of, I always have clients that'll say something like, well, I'm not willing to give up my coffee or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, then let's not give up the coffee. Let's try this first and see if we can come back to letting, down stepping the coffee a little bit time and time again. And understanding that, yeah, as human beings, sometimes we do have like an emotional attachment to something, and you can't just like, okay, we're eliminating it. Grr, and endometriosis clients, and PMDD clients, I will say, are both people who are like, just rip the Band-Aid off. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Just make it end. But everyone else is more a little bit like one step at a time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it depends on how long you've been suffering, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah. And you're
I
like,
was a rip the Band-Aid off person too. Like I was just like, make this stop. So I did all of the things at once, but then I had to figure out what worked and not, right? So having a coach to help you with that is also really supporting, right? To help you go, okay, well, what worked? What didn't work? What do we continue doing? What do we stop doing? And having those kinds of conversations when you're doing it on your own and you're in a little isolated bubble going, I don't know, I think this worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it just takes much longer when you're doing it on your own.
Oh my God, so much
Anything in life.
longer.
I think that's the most important thing I've done as an adult. And it's not even when I was a young adult. It's like probably in the past 10, 15 years, like just getting support and asking for help. I really do feel like this was a life skill I did not learn until I was in my late 20s, of really getting and looking for support that like actually I felt comfortable with and was working and helping me.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we've talked about how you and I are both moving into perimenopause, and I've already been like, okay, who am I going to have be my perimenopause coach?
Mhm.
I might know all of this information, but it's tough to see the forest for the trees. So, yeah, yeah, for sure, getting support and some help through those things makes a huge difference. And this is it. Menstrual cycles are mysterious and they're full of weird, like just weird answers and anecdotes and studies and vague studies that don't actually answer questions, or so it is tough to navigate by yourself, and having a coach to help navigate that is really helpful. Okay, so one of the other things that I did want to chat through on this is group programs, right? Because so some people might find one-on-one coaching to be expensive, or just don't really want to dive into a full-on one-on-one situation. So when you're working with group coaching clients, what's something that what does that look like?
Yeah, I think like people that like to be part of groups like to be on committees and their community, and they they're they feel open enough to share.
Mhm.
So anyone that ever joins my group is like kind of open book, right? They're like, they'll tell anybody anything. So if you feel comfortable in a setting, and I'm not even saying being in a group, you have to be like that, but like to get the most out of being in a group because there's less one-on-one time, right? There takes a level of being able to like ask questions and put yourself out there. So I think if you feel comfortable in that situation, that setting, it would be really helpful for you because it would be less expensive, right? What I love most about being part of group and leading group programs is everybody's always learning from everybody else. Because if you're dealing with something, chances are the other person that might not be speaking up on today's call is also experiencing that. So I feel there's a lot of magic in that, and I always learn so much in that community as well too. So I think group programs are great for community, and even I've had women stay in touch and continue to support each other after, which I think is amazing to be able to like find somebody that's also dealing with similar things, and then being able to like have somebody else as a new friend to be able to bounce ideas off with, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I do love that aspect of it. I learned a lot too. And I suppose, in transparency's sake, I haven't had a group program outside of period coaching school certification. So, everyone there is either signed up because they have a period problem that they want to fix themselves, or they do want to start a business doing menstrual cycle coaching in some capacity, which is another episode. But we definitely have great communities, and for example, we had somebody who specifically wanted to talk about, like, what kind of herbs would you use for this particular period problem. And I was like, well, I'm not actually an herbalist. I know these are what I would suggest to a client, but we do have two certified herbalists in class. One is an alumni, one is a student this year, and they were both on the call. So I just was like, you too. What would you suggest? And so I learned a lot too in that, because somebody asked that particular question, and that was not necessarily my wheelhouse. And we all got to have a really good conversation about it and learn from each other, which I really like. And I will say one thing about group programs is I'm outrageously introverted. I have been by myself for months at a time and just enjoyed it immensely. But shy is not the same thing. So whenever I've joined group programs in the past, I've always been like, I'm going to get every penny's worth out of this. I'm the
Mm.
first person to raise my hand. I'm the first person to ask a question. even if I don't have a question, I'll be like, can I just think this out loud to the community and see what you guys think? So if, you might feel like, I'm not a huge fan of chatting those things through, but, jump in and have just get in there and do it. And like you said, somebody will ask a question and I'll go, oh, you know what? That is a good question. So even in those group areas when you're not necessarily asking the question, it is kind of nice to have that space where other people are asking questions and you can get feedback and then maybe pop in a question, or it makes you think of a question that you wanted to answer as well. So I do like those group program dynamics where you get to have those spaces. I think my number one thing to look out for group programs is how the person leading that particular program has their expectations laid out. So I usually look through things like terms and conditions just to see what they say in that, if they say anything at that. And then usually like the welcome call or, the setup to see what kind of expectations they have for the community, So for Period Coaching School, one of our first things that we talk about on the welcome call is, in this community, you're going to stop and say, how can I say this with love? And you're going to assume anyone on the other side of that keyboard is saying it with love. So if you're assuming the comments are coming from somebody who has stopped and thought, how can I say this with love? Because you are going to stop and say this with love, we're going to have a really great time together. So I need you to hear comments with that love rose-colored glasses filter on, because it's hard to get tone, especially when you're typing. So then we have a community that's just text-based. So it's having that kind of established boundary has made me now look at group programs before I sign up and kind of go, okay, how do they set up their group, their community, the safe space, essentially? Of course, you can never guarantee a safe space, but how do they try and make it a good place to have those conversations? So that's something I've been looking for more and more.
I love that. That's such a beautiful place of support and coming from a genuine, because it is, you're so right. Like even emails, like we just don't talk as much as we used to. We're just communicating on text and email and like chatting on webinars. So it's nice to know that that's where they're coming from. So then when you're reading it, that's where I like that. That's really beautiful. I would even say too, a big thing of being in a group is you can always email questions or email things too, if you don't feel comfortable sharing as well. Just throwing that out there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. All right. So before we close up, any last words of wisdom to somebody who may be thinking, oh gosh, maybe I should hire a period coach?
I think something really important is making sure that you feel really comfortable with the person that you're going to work with. Not everyone's going to be the right person for you, and the coach might not even be the right person for you. So speak to lots of people, like see who you feel most comfortable with. Like some red flags are promises, like if you work with me for this amount of time, like everything is going to be rosy, right? Be mindful of that, because like you mentioned before, 3 periods or 6 periods, even 12 periods, right? If you put it that way, isn't really that much time depending on how long you've been dealing with your symptoms and how you're feeling. So I think that's something we really work with our clients, is just making sure, like, do you feel comfortable with taking the next step? Like, what are your questions? And really keeping an eye out for that. So making sure you check in with yourself and you feel like this is a good step for you.
Yeah, I love that. A little bit of shop around, see what you like, see who jives with you, see what you need, and move forward from there. Yeah, I really like that. We have a directory on periodcoachingschool.com, which is the Find a Coach page. And I'm often telling the coaches, like, list what you've got, because so for example, in the first year, one of our coaches is a somatic trained trauma coach as well. So like, if you know that you're having period problems and you have trauma associated with it, you're probably going to want to find a coach who can handle that and the problem at the same time, right? So you may even want to see what kind of things that your coach is looking at and can handle and that sort of thing as well. So Yeah, I love that. See what you need, see what's out there in the world, see what feels good for you, have a couple different conversations with people, and then, go with somebody that you just had a good feeling with, that you had a good conversation with, that seemed to understand what you were getting, and be wary of full on promises. That's true of anything. You see like business coaches out there that's like results not typical. Like my client made $1 million on the first year, asterisk.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch out for those blanket statements and promises that sound a little good too good to be true.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, listen to your body knows, like, yeah.
For sure. Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you have questions, if something came up, please feel free to email us and ask. We'd love to hear, or, reach out on Insta DMs or whatever. Slide into the DMs. And feel free to ask, because I'm sure that you've got questions out there about coaching and the behind the scenes stuff, and we're happy to answer them. That's what we're here for, to open the book, to draw back the curtain and shine the light, so you all feel a bit more comfortable getting the help and support that you need for your cycle, your life, that kind of thing. So thank you all for being here. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bressack Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bressack, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebressack.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.